Hello, can you all hear me? Excellent. Good morning, everybody. My name's Stanley. I'm the founder and CEO of Anicca Digital. And I'm going to be talking to you today about the impact of generative AI and social search on Google's role in driving e-commerce traffic. I've also included in here some information about TikTok, because TikTok is becoming a search engine in its own right. And we have got a link at the end so you can download the slides. They're already up on our website. There is a previous recording of this, which I did with a webinar, but I've uploaded the new version of the slides because everything in our industry moves so quickly, you're going to need the new version of the slides. Okay, so Anicca's nearly grown up now. We'll be 18 next year. And basically, I've been the CEO and founder, having worked in the industry for over 22 years. I know it sounds a long time. I've written a couple of books, and you've got the Integrate book in front of you. If you haven't got a copy or you'd like another one, please go and help yourself on the way out. And on that note, we've also got a stand. We're in A69. Now, I think you all remember the A69. So hopefully, it should be a reasonably easy number to remember, and we're over there if you want to come and talk to us afterwards. Anicca does 5 things. We are based up in Leicester, and we do strategy, social, search, shopping, and skills. We actually run a separate academy where we trained nearly 800 people over the last 2 years in digital marketing level 5. So we get free grants from the East Midlands and the East of England to do training. Okay, so let's crash on. Now, I just need to warn you, if you've seen me speak before, I'm going to go very fast, and I'm going to give you a lot of really good slides. Now, if I see you all stand up, I will pause to let you take a photograph, but the slides are already available. Okay, so we're going to cover 3 things. We're going to just talk a little bit about how important search is, particularly Google, in driving traffic. We're then going to talk about search beyond search engines, because this is becoming a very important part of the channels and the mix that we need to get people to our websites. And then the impact of AI on search, particularly with things like AI overviews, ChatGPT. And if you haven't already heard, ChatGPT is actually launching a brand new search engine. It's in beta at the moment, called search.chatgpt. You can't get on the waiting list, unfortunately, so I haven't got a screenshot for you. We're just waiting to be let in. Okay, so let's talk about the role of search to drive traffic. And I'm using the information from Rand Fishkin. I'm not sure if you remember Rand. He was the Wizard of Moz. So if you've been in the industry for as long as you all remember Moz. SEO Moz, it's still around. He's got a new business called Spark Toro, which is all about influencers. And he's been doing a lot of research on the fact that although we spend a huge amount of time on lots of different platforms, so in this case, 20% of our visits in the US are on social media platforms, it doesn't actually drive traffic. So there's a big disconnect with the sites that are important for us as users versus the sites that actually drive traffic. So you'll notice in this slide that Google's at 63%. In the UK, Google drives about 94%, but it is dropping, and I'm going to tell you why it's dropping. So based on this, a lot of us will spend a lot of our marketing budget on search marketing because it drives such a large proportion. So, of course, we aren't in the US, we are mainly in the UK, so I thought I'd provide some UK data. Now, I didn't completely update this slide from April, but what I have done is I've looked at the number of visits using similar web data for the top 20 or so search engines. You probably didn't even know there was 20 search engines. And there's a few interesting ones here, which you may never heard of. So Brave, Startpage, Perplexity. Has anybody heard of Perplexity? Okay, it's growing so fast you won't believe it. Now, based on this in the UK, you think, well, it's not worth me spending any money anywhere else apart from Google. But what you can see is, since I did this slide in April, Google's percentage has already dropped 1%. So Google is not driving as much traffic as it was. And we all know with inflation, bid inflation of sort of between what sector you're in, 10 and 30%, PPC is becoming really, really difficult. So based on this assumption, you'd say, well, why would I bother with any other search engines? I can get the whole of the market. You know, a lot of people would divert a little bit of their ad spend maybe for Bing, because you can also get into DuckDuckGo, you can get into Yahoo. But the interesting thing is when you look at this data, is that if you look at unique visitors, unique users, it's a very different story. And actually, Google's only got about 3/4 of the unique visitors, and therefore, why would you not go in the other 25%? Do you see what I mean? So you can change this direction. And you'll notice when it comes to unique visitors, they've dropped from 76 to 73% in less than 6 months. So you can see that people are moving to alternative search engines. Now, the similar web data, you won't be able to read this until you get the slides, but this shows them in order. And this is the data for August, so this is the most up-to-date data I can get. And what you notice is Yahoo has gone up 10%, Brave 35%, Start Pages 19%, and Perplexity, although they're starting off with only 2.1 million visitors a month, that's gone up 248% compared with August last year. So the growth is huge. And interestingly, Bing, DuckDuckGo, and Google have all gone backwards. So Google's gone down by 2% year on year for the UK. So you can see there's quite a lot of pressure as these new search engines come in, which are offering different features. And I think there was a lot of bad press when they originally released AI overviews, because they was getting some really crazy results. So I think that's why a lot of people are starting to look at these other search engines. Another way to look at this is to look at it from a sector-specific point of view. So again, using SimilarWeb, this is August data. Oh, sorry, I did change it, but I missed the April there. But this is both August data. For 50 home and garden sites, altogether in August, they had 212 million visits. You can see how important organic traffic is and paid search is. And then you've got this bucket called direct. Now, traditionally, we think of direct, particularly from a universal analytics point of view, as people that type in next or johnlewis.co.uk, etc. That's not correct anymore, because we found a couple of things happening with a lot of these analytical tools, is that the direct bucket is the everything else bucket. So if you look at GA4, most of your paid social will go into direct, and currently, because they're trying to fix it, Performance Max traffic is also going into direct as well with SimilarWeb. So you just need to be careful when you compare your site compared with another site, when you're using tools like this, that direct is not all that it is cut up to be. So in the example below, which is a lot of the big property portals, you've got things like Rightmove, Property Finder, Purple Bricks, etc. You'll notice that they're not spending the same money on paid search, and they're not spending the same money on social. I'll just correct that. They're not spending money on campaigns that send traffic to your website. They could still be spending a load of money on campaigns, but it could be awareness campaigns. And one of the reasons for this is this is my standard hands up. How many of you are doing paid social? Okay. How many of you have heard of the conversion API? Okay, well, it's better than last year. Last year it was 3, and I think we got 6. So the conversion API is the way that you get your conversion data from paid social into the back of into Facebook, and suddenly all those conversion campaigns will start working again. So that's one of the things in the book. So if you are doing paid social and you're not using conversion API, you're not using server-side tracking, you need to, because otherwise it won't be working. So let's look at search beyond search engines then, and let's look at where people start their search. And we've got 2 graphs here. One's from eMarketer from January, and one's from Adobe report from April 24. And there's some really interesting data in the Adobe report. And the Adobe report was very much focused on TikTok and other social platforms. And what we see is this massive switch towards social being a very important source of product information, particularly with the younger age group. So what I've got is a couple of slides on the data. So this again is from this same study, which is quoted in the Adobe work. This is the Her Campus study for actually in eMarketer. And what we see at this time was Gen Z users are 51% of them are more likely to do TikTok for searching than they are Google. And 64% of Gen Zs are active on TikTok. So what you're seeing is that younger generation who want to be entertained, they don't trust the old search engines anymore. So if this is your demographic, then you need to be here, because otherwise you're missing out a big chunk of data. And I'm going to show you some numbers to prove that. The interesting thing is the assumption it's all B2C, cosmetics, fashion, but interestingly, when you look at what topics they're searching on, you can find that it does cover a whole range of different topics, including things like DIY, and all sorts of other stuff as well, design, recommendations, travel, of course. So, yeah, DI tips, 34%, which is really interesting. So, what I thought I would do is just show you how to find out what's going on in TikTok, because all of you know there's that Google ad planner that I've been using for, oh, God knows, well, at least 17 years, maybe longer than that, nearly 20 years. So I can find out what search volumes are happening, but I have no idea what's happening in TikTok. So TikTok has released something called the Business Creative Center, which is, you don't actually have to have a TikTok account to get in, and it's easier to use it on a desktop. And it will give you quite a lot of information. Some of the data I've got here I haven't redone from April when I first presented this, so just a moment of honesty there. But you can see under the inspiration section, you can look at keyword insights, product insights, even look at ads, and you can put a keyword in and let's see what's actually happening. So this is for the word dress, and you've got all the different combinations with dress. And what you get is a load of data with the popularity, and popularity means the number of ads. And this is in the UK in the last 7 days. But you've got things like CPAs, click-through rates. So you're actually getting real data and impressions of how many people are actually searching on this within TikTok. So instead of just saying, oh no, nobody in TikTok's going to look at my product, no, come on, just use the data, go and look, go and find out. You can also look at it from a product's perspective as well. So interestingly, they use casual dress instead of summer dress. And you've got lots of other ways. There's some categories and a sort of directory structure. And then you can then go in and have a look at the audience insights as well for that particular product or that particular key phrase. So you can dive into the detail. And what you notice is if you look at the age brackets here, that 43% are 18 to 24. And 28% are 25 to 34. So it's still a very young audience. But as you know, with what happened with Facebook, it just sort of spread through the generations as more and more people realized it was a platform of interest to them. Another tool I wanted to mention was Glimpse. Now, this is a Chrome plugin that you might not have heard of before. And what you'll see is, on the left-hand side, is actually trends data. But what they've done is they've taken the absolute figures, so it's not a percentage out of 100. So you can see on the left-hand side, for garden furniture, this was from yesterday, that in the last month, so I guess that would be August, there was 114,000 searches, and it's down 23%. Well, you know why. The weather was absolutely awful, and of course we didn't have very many searches, whereas summer dresses, only 27,000, and it's up 12%. So that's going to give you some information there, but you notice on the right-hand side, they've also got this alternative channel. Now, the data on the left is for the UK, and the data on the right is for worldwide. But what it does is it starts to show you where searches are happening in other social platforms. So that's really, really useful. There is a better tool you can use. Unfortunately, you have to pay for it. I'm sure you all recognize Neil Patel. He bought Answer the Public. And you'll notice that in addition to the platforms here, Google, Bing, YouTube, TikTok, so this has been around for about 6 months now. It was probably March that they launched it. At Amazon, you can actually get search volume data for the key phrases that you might be interested in. Compare Google, compare with all the platforms. So using the same two again, garden furniture and TikTok, sorry, garden furniture in Google and on TikTok, you can see the August figures, and I think this is the average for the year they're using, because it hasn't really changed much since April. So I think the data they're presenting is the average. And you can see there was 201,000 searches on average in Google, versus 6.6 in TikTok. And the TikTok figures have gone up about 20% since April. Now, if you compare that with dresses, you can see in Google the search is a little bit lower when you look at Google, because of course we're now in August, so I don't think it's as popular search as garden furniture. But look at the number for summer dresses in TikTok. So you're talking about over double, and that's gone up quite a lot. So what you're seeing is, depending on the search phrases or the product you've got, you might find that TikTok now is a more important platform than Google, and that's the point I'm trying to make. Okay, so going on to generative AI then, I have cut out quite a few slides on this section because there was a lot of background information, but I decided to focus on a little bit more on Google. Previous versions of this slide, if you go onto my, we have a webinar every Friday morning, 9 till 10. It's free, you can sign up. There's over 300 recordings from the since COVID, basically. But I've just put here Gemini. It looks very similar to ChatGPT. And of course, this was their rebranding of Bard, because Bard was a disaster, had a lot of bad publicity. So the engine that's driving Gemini is now driving the AI overviews, which they launched in May. We had access to their search generative experience, which is what it was called before, via the USA for about 6 months before. So what happened was they launched it, it was amazing, and then suddenly they screwed it all up, and the results were terrible. So you might find that you don't get a lot of AI overview results anymore, and that's because they're sort of protecting it while they perfect it a little bit more. But I'm just going to walk you through and show you what's happening. So this is, are there any digital marketing conferences in Leicestershire? Because we run a conference. Our next one is in February, March. And this is the AI overview results, but you've got to show more if you want to get to the next stage. But what you do see is all the organic results have been shifted significantly down. So if you think about it, you've got the AI overview results, you've got PPC, you've got the local listings. You have to be number 1 or 2 really in SEO to have any chance of getting any clicks anymore, because everything's been pushed down. So when you open it up, what you get is you get the content, and then you get typically 3 main links. Occasionally you'll get links in the text as well, and they are putting ads in this. And this week we saw our first example from the States where we're actually getting product listings in the AI overviews as well. So if you're spending money on Performance Max and Smart Shopping, that's going to start appearing in the AI overviews, as well as the main text and these links at the bottom. Sometimes it's a carousel, so sometimes you can scroll along. So just to clarify what happened, the first results were on the 23rd of May, pretty much when IRX was happening down up in Birmingham, about the same, I think it was a week after. And what we saw was they really screwed things up, and you started to see some really stupid results. So not this one, of course, because this is showing that we were in the results. But one of the things we started to see is it would start to show you where the results were coming from. So if you were an agency, we'd notice that it was the Digital Agency Network or Clutch. Or if you were a brand, it might be Wikipedia or something like that. So it's starting to give you a bit of a hint of where the data was coming from. Because, of course, the way that generative AI has moved, it's not just their learning data, which is fixed and closes off. It's also accessing the web live, particularly if you've got something like ChatGPT 4.0 and you're using the paid version. You're getting live data off the internet, which is why they're going to launch a search engine. So they do get it wrong, so I just thought you'd like to read this one, because I think it's quite amusing, but a little bit dangerous. So this was one of the many things like eating rocks, gluing pizza, and this is all about, it's all about aim to drink 2 litres of urine every 24 hours. Now, some of these were fake, but the problem is that Google relies on a lot of web data, and we know there's a lot of toxic and bad data in the web because nobody's collating it, nobody's saying it's wrong or right, whereas ChatGPT isn't using huge amounts of web data to start with. Their data source was much cleaner, and therefore the quality of the data that you get in ChatGPT is usually better. There's not so many hallucinations and sort of dangerous stuff like this. So that meant that there are a lot less of these around now, and you don't see quite as many. And we do find that if you do any research, then you might not always get to find it. So you've got a brilliant SEO strategy. You're using PPC. Your PPC costs are going through the roof. Your PPC is highly reliant on dynamic content, things like dynamic search ads, performance max, which is coming from your feed, shopping ads, and then you suddenly realize you've got all this other stuff on top. So how the hell can you get the visibility in the generative search results, whether it's AI overviews, ChatGPT, Perplexity? Now, of course, in a lot of cases, it's down to your quality of your SEO. But you've got to remember, sometimes they're using alternative data. And the problem with all this is that the standard search ranking tools are only just starting to measure this stuff. So you don't even know where you are and how you're going to approach it. So I'm really concerned about this because I'm thinking the next 2 years, what with all the things that are happening with PPC and SEO sort of almost merging. And then I've called it generative search optimization because I really like GSO. It's sort of rounds with SEO, so you heard it here first. I think our roles as digital marketers is going to change significantly. So just let me tell you what we're doing with AI. So the first thing we did pretty much as soon as the API became available in ChatGPT is we created a tool called Mammoth, which allows us to create product pages en masse, so 10,000 at a time. And it's all about prompting and use of Python to go and bring the information back. How many of you have used the custom GPTs yet? Okay, they're amazing. So if you've got to do something regularly or you're going to write a lot of content, you can train a custom GPT to do exactly what you want. Bring your brand guidelines in, your tone of voice, and you can do it for creating. I've created something called the virtual CMO. I haven't released it publicly yet, but it will literally do everything you need to create a marketing plan, content colors, content calendars, personas, hooks, etc., etc. So this is where marketing's going around these custom GPTs. And then finally, we needed to have a strategy around how you do SGO. So first of all, where's the data coming from? So you've got that pre-trained data. You remember the first version of ChatGPT, it finished in 22 or something. That's being updated all the time. And then you've got that live data, which we call RAG, which is the supplemented data. Or you can add your own content by attaching a file. And then over on the right, what the hell are people searching for? They're writing whole sentences. They're writing, blocks of prompts. But in that prompt somewhere is going to be a couple of keywords which would be similar to what you would be searching if you were searching in Google. But it's just going to be surrounded by all this other stuff. Now, there's quite a few tools available already that will see whether you're in the links, but we also want to know whether you're being mentioned or not. And then if you can see if you're being mentioned, we can reverse engineer that. So SEO Monitor, which is a tool we've been using for, I think, 8 years now, they've already introduced AI overview results, which is great, and you can sort of see what it looks like. I think SEMrush have already got an AI overviews results tool as well, but you've got to pay for the paid versions. I did find a tool called ZipTie, which is an AI overview tracking tool. I haven't actually paid for that yet, but I just thought I'd mention that because there are some tools around. But I just wanted to show you what we're doing. So we're using a similar approach to Mammoth, which is API calls via Python. So effectively what we do is we create an Excel sheet. We have a list of all our prompts, which is a combination of key phrases with different things either side. And then you can also put things like answer the public, all those questions in there. And then we send that off to the API via Python script. and then we bring that back into Excel. I'll show you what it looks like in a minute. And then from there, we can visualize it and sort of understand how you're doing compared with your competitors. And then what we're going to do is we're going to correlate that with your search rankings to find out, is this phrase SEO driven, of why you get found in the results, or is it driven by things like citations and directories? And then if you need to pay to get into a directory, then that's what we'll do. So this is what it looks like. This is a really, really small demo. It's just 20 key phrases combined with to create a prompt, and you do this en masse. And then what we do is we run the script. You can see the little button top left. And then this is an example of what it looks like just in notes. So what we're doing there is we're having a look. We can see the different brands. Of course, when it comes back from the API, it's not nicely formatted. The double stars are actually bold. And then we stick that into Excel, and we start to do some analysis. How often is your brand mentioned? How often is the competitor mentioned? Let's do some n-grams. Let's re-rate that to the tracking. So great strategy for doing en masse how well you're doing for AI overview results. In this case, we're currently using ChatGPT because the API isn't available yet from Google, but of course that will be our next stage. Okay then, so I'm always overrun, so I'm being told. So conclusions then, Google has and is still dominating the search results. You've got all these new search engines that are up and coming. Also within that data, you could see there was some retail media like Amazon and Walmart are all coming up and being more important. One of the results which I didn't point out to you, that Reddit and Twitter actually get more referral traffic than LinkedIn. ChatGPT and AI-powered search is having a massive impact. And of course, if you start to get a lot less traffic from Google, what are you going to do about it? And you can definitely need new strategies for SGO. What we recommend, which is why I've given you the book, is an integrated strategy and use lots and lots of channel diversification. So that's the end of my talk, and that is the link to get the presentation with some other resources as well. That's it, guys. If you want to come and see us, we're A69. If you haven't already picked up a book, please do. The guys are at the back. Thank you very much.